Introduce bill number RS 2632. And this is an election bill to encourage voter engagement by extending the time by 2 days for advanced ballots to be mailed out. We currently have 20 days, and it'll be 22 days. And it also adjusts the time for applications for advanced ballots to be filed by the 12th day before the election, and ends the time for voter registration at 25 days before Election Day. There's some other minor things in here about early voting opportunities, and then a lot of statutory cleanup. So are there any questions?
Okay, are there any questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, is there any objection to requesting introduction of this bill? Okay, seeing none, it'll be introduced. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, is there anyone else requesting bill introduction? Ms. Herbert, welcome to the committee. Okay, are there any questions? Okay, is there any objection to the introduction of this bill? Okay, seeing none, we'll request introduction. Thank you. Are there any other bill introductions? Mr. Vice Chairman.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Actually, I have a number of bills that I would like to see get consideration. The first RS number is 2565, which would be a bill about prohibiting the use of state and municipal government assets and employee time to advocate for or against ballot questions and clearly define what express advocacy is for the purposes of enforcing this prohibition.
Why don't you go ahead and run through all of them, and then we'll
okay, then we go
through
we have a whole list here. There is RS 2614, which is directing the DMV to report any. Oh, I'm sorry. That's the wrong one. Not for me. Thank you. There is RS 2862, which requires the name and address of every campaign contribution donor who is not included on public reports to the Public Disclosure Commission. This is something that we discussed at the special committee hearing this summer. There would be then RS 2684, which is about modifying the advanced voting ballot envelope language regarding voters with certain disabilities, and repeal advanced voting except for UOCAVA if signature verification measures are struck down, and that's 2684. The next one here is 2875, which is again is no longer requiring the treasurer's name be included on campaign materials. We have, do you have that, Mr. Revisor? The RS 2705, which is granting the Secretary of State authority to use other government and private databases to verify residency and to clean up voter rolls accordingly. And then a few more still here coming up. There is one RS 2935, which would be in elections. It's a question about requiring counties to use district attorneys. I
think that's 2932.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, 2932. I do got that right. Thank you for the correction on that RS number. There is a 12718, which is requiring online voter registration to be only through .gov websites or websites approved by the Secretary of State, with some statutory guidance on those. If you have that, there is RS 2900, which is directing county clerks to conduct a special election to fill a vacancy on a city council position if the vacancy is not filled within 60 days. And I think the last of the ones that I have to present here is RS 2579, which makes an exemption from the campaign account termination requirements if the account has more than $1,000 or has outstanding debts totaling $1,000 or more. And I think with that, Mr. Chairman, I am done.
Are there any questions for the Vice Chairman? All right, seeing no serious questions, are there any objections to requesting introduction of these bills? Okay, seeing none, they'll be requested for introduction. Are there any other requests for introduction before I start talking? Okay. I have a couple that I would like to request introduction of. The first one is RS 2670, which moves all local elections to even-numbered years. The second is RS 2614, which requires the DMV to report when somebody gets a driver's license in another state so they can be removed from the voter rolls. The next one is RS 2845, which requires a Kansas driver's license to indicate if the holder is a non-citizen. The next one is RS 2572, which requires any person transmitting a ballot for another person to include their driver's license number on the ballot envelope. The next one is RS 2908, which requires all state agencies that provide federal benefits to report non-citizens who receive those benefits to the Secretary of State's office for purposes of scrubbing the voter rolls. And then finally, RS 2716, which allows voluntarily candidates for local offices to have their party affiliation appear on the ballot. Are there any questions on any of those? Okay, are there any objections to the introduction of those bills? Okay, seeing no objections, they will be requested for introduction. All right, last call for today. Are there any other bill introductions? Okay, seeing none. What I'd like to do very quickly, because we've got a couple new members to the committee, is I would like everybody to introduce yourself and tell us, if you're a representative, where you represent, and anything else you'd like to tell us about briefly. And then I'll also ask the staff here after that to introduce themselves. And we'll start down there on the end with Representative Meyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hi, everyone. I'm Representative Meyer. I represent Overland Park's 29th District, which is essentially Central Overland Park. Thank you.
Representative Berquist, 91st District. Been on election committee for a few years and want to keep doing it. Thanks.
I'm Representative Hellwig. I represent the 1st District down there in Cherokee and Labette County. So thank you.
Hi, I'm Representative Alexis Simmons. I represent Topeka. I love election policy. I love campaign finance policy, and I have so much fun in this committee. Thank you to our chair and our vice chair and our ranking minority for indulging me. We do good work in here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm Rick Wilburn, House District 73, mainly McPherson County.
I'm Christy Williams, and I serve in the 77th. That's Augusta, and it's right by Wichita.
I'm Representative Wagner, been vice chairman for the last 2 terms. I have spent 6 years on this committee of my 8 years here in the legislature. I definitely enjoy it. Very much respect our chairman and even think we have a good ranking members. just for the record.
It must be election season. Pat Proctor, I serve the people of Leavenworth, Fort Leavenworth, and Kansas House. I've been the chair for a couple terms and on the committee for my entire time in the legislature. And Representative Simmons, I too very much love this committee and the work that we do. Thank you.
Representative Haskins, House District 53. I lost a bet, so I'm on the election committee, and but I do enjoy spending time with you guys. Thank you.
Representative James, I represent Southeast Kansas, Lynn, and Bourbon counties, and this is my second session with this committee.
Hello, I'm Representative Brooklyn Mosley, and I'm fulfilling my lifelong dream of having two committees with Rick James over here, Representative James. I represent Northeast Lawrence, and I'm very passionate about people who are chipping away from the rights that people who look like me bled for, but I'm happy to be on this committee with y'all.
Steve Brunk, representing Northeast Wichita and a very, very small sliver of Butler County. So I would also ask the committee's forgiveness for walking in here tardily. I had someone in my office, and so, you're just kind of drumming your fingers trying to figure out how to extricate yourself from that. So apologize for being tardy. And thank you for the bill introductions. 3 or 4 of those were things that were rolling around in my mind, and so I can remove that now.
Brian Burkamp, District 93, air capital of the world, although I mainly represent mostly rural areas.
Hi, Cheryl Dew. I'm the committee assistant. This is my 3rd year. I just want to let everyone know everything will be on the S drive, but if you need anything in addition or need me to print anything out, just get with me. I'm happy to do it.
Hello, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I'm Elena Rutter with Legislative Research. This is my 6th session with KLRD and also my 6th session on this committee.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I am Jillian Kincaid, a research analyst with Legislative Research. This is my 4th session and my 4th session on elections.
Mike Heim with the Reviser of Statutes Office, and I was here when Representative Brunk used to be in the legislature.
I'm Jaden Berry. This is my second year, and this is my I'm part of the AV team.
Well, thank you, everybody, for that. Welcome to our new members to the committee. We're thrilled to have you and look forward to your participation in the committee. I'd like to ask the committee's indulgence. It's not on the schedule, but I asked one of our amazing researchers, Jillian Kincaid, to talk to us briefly about what happened in the special committee hearing that we had this summer or fall, and because it will touch on some of the bills that we hear this year, and I know everybody here was not able to be on that committee. So Jillian, if you would please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Good afternoon. As stated, I am Jillian Kincaid with Legislative Research. The report of the 2025 Special Committee on Campaign Contributions and Transparency to the 2026 Kansas Legislature should have just hit all of your inboxes. Elena, I'm going to ask for an assist. I believe I missed Representatives Mosley and Brunk. If you can catch them for me, I would appreciate that. Thank you. So you should be able to follow along with that if you wish to. And then it will shortly be available on our department's website, klrd.gov, as well. So some background on this committee. This committee was directed to study and make recommendations concerning campaign contribution, transparency, and verifiability. It was, there it is, requested in response to a report from 3 U.S. congressional House committees detailing potential illegal activity, including alleged fraudulent donations by straw donors and foreign actors by a federal political action committee and its fundraising platform. So the Legislative Coordinating Council approved 1 meeting day for the committee, and they met on October 15th in the State House. The committee began its morning with an update from the Reviser of Statutes to recent amendments that the legislature had made to the Campaign Finance Act, and then moved on to an update from the Secretary of State's office, where the General Counsel for the Secretary of State provided the committee with specific updates about laws that were currently in litigation, including Vote America v. Schwab, the League of Women Voters v. Schwab, United Kansas v. Schwab, Kansas Appleseed v. Schwab, and Kansans for Constitutional Freedom v. Kobach. Additionally, he shared with the committee a few of the Secretaries of State's legislative proposals for the 2026 session. These proposals emphasized addressing the redundancy that candidates and committees have when they're filing forms with the Secretary of State and the Kansas Public Disclosure Commission, the challenges that the Public Disclosure Commission has in enforcing the subvendor reporting requirement, and then the challenges created by requiring treasurers to be the name listed on the paid-for attributions on advertising. Next, the committee heard from the president and the chairman of the Institute for Free Speech. They presented guiding principles and best practices for free speech in campaign finance and lobbying laws. For these best practices, the president explained that the only recognized purpose of campaign finance law is preventing quid pro quo corruption and its appearance. Therefore, any restriction must be rooted in such principles. Additionally, these laws should be simple to help persons comply and make disclaimers more effective. And grassroots advocacy should not be regulated, as it is vital to representative democracy. He then had some specific recommendations for Kansas, suggesting that donor disclosure thresholds should be raised. They are currently at a $50. If a person gives more than $50 in aggregate in a year, then their name is to be disclosed. The disclosure form recommended by the Federal Election Commission should be adopted. An internet exemption should be added for posts for which no fee is paid on the internet. Think a social media post. Enforcement should not be used to provide guidance as to the meaning of the law. The legislature should clarify the meaning of vague laws. A provision should be added to the act that if there is more than one reasonable interpretation of the act, it shall be applied to maximize the right of freedom of speech and of the press. The ban on a legislator or candidate forming a political action committee should be repealed. Contribution limits to political parties should be removed, and contribution limits should be indexed to inflation. Then the chairman and founder of the Institute of Free Speech, who is also a former chairman of the Federal Election Commission, though he was not speaking in that capacity, he emphasized that thresholds must be high enough to be meaningful. He explained that when there is so much information, such as disclosing every person who gives $50, it makes it difficult for a person to find the information of a higher limit donor. Additionally, he reinforced the suggestion that the campaign contribution limits should be indexed to inflation so that they go up automatically. Next, the committee heard from a self-described retired data scientist familiar with Kansas campaign laws, and he presented challenges to transparency that Kansas faces in the areas of digital transparency, voter registration and voter lists, campaign finance, election results, and nonprofits and dark money. In response to specific questions from the committee members, the data scientist also explained smurfing schemes, in which a stolen contributor name and address is used to make contributions. And then if that contribution is small enough, it doesn't need to be disclosed to the Public Disclosure Commission. He further posited that allowing same-day registration at a polling place on election day could be a method to address voter registration bloat at, say, the University of Kansas and Kansas State University. He also explained that nonprofit organizations currently may legally spend money on independent expenditures without reporting it, as long as they avoid the 9 key phrases that make their expenditures express advocacy. Next, the committee started to look ahead with a 30,000-foot view on the path ahead, with an attorney practiced in campaign finance law. He presented a contextual overview of the recent changes instead of just what the actual changes were. He gave a lot of the context, including the recommendations of the 2023 Special Committee on Governmental Ethics Reform and Campaign Finance Law, other recent court decisions, and the legislation that was enacted in 2025. He further addressed some of the procedural statutes governing the Public Disclosure Commission that have not yet been addressed, but have been part of the conversation since 2023. He advocated for 2025 Senate Bill 279, which is currently in the Senate Committee on Federal and State Affairs, which contains provisions addressing those procedural statutes. Additionally, he advocated that the Public Speech Protection Act be amended to include the sentence, "Any action seeking compliance with or enforcement of a subpoena shall be considered a claim under this act." In quotes. And then at this time, he was not on the agenda, but the former executive director of the Public Disclosure Commission was in attendance and was invited to address the committee. He addressed some outstanding questions from earlier in the day and stood for additional questions. The committee requested information on just topics that we had heard: campaign donations, terminating campaign accounts, provisions of the acts, and the committee did express gratitude for his attendance. And then the final presentation of the day, legislative research staff presented a memorandum detailing legislation in 2025 that addressed concerns of these unverified online donations and on contributors unknowingly making recurring contributions. So after the presentations, the committee had a robust discussion. And following the discussion, the committee made a number of recommendations to the 2026 legislature, including increased scrutiny is necessary for false political advertising and false statements used in political advertising. The committee discussed the negative impact that this false advertising can have on the lives of candidates and on the lives of their immediate families. They also recommended further review of adjusting campaign contribution limits in accordance with the Consumer Price Index or another similar metric. The committee also acknowledged in this conversation that it can get a little tricky if it's directly connected to and it goes up every year, because then you might have a contribution limit that ends in a 93 cents. So they discussed rounding it to the nearest $25 or reviewing it every 5 years. The committee recommends further review on maintaining the current limits of disclosure, so at that $50, but requiring persons to report all contributions for the purpose of express advocacy. The committee discussed that candidates and committees would still be allowed to disclose all of their contributions if they wish to do so. And they discussed that this could address the concerns regarding smurfing that was noted by one of the conferees. The committee recommended the legislature consider legislation to amend the definition of express advocacy. There was acknowledgement that changing the definition in a significant way in an election year could get some people in some hot water, but the continual practice of nonprofits operating as political committees, except for the 9 phrases, and disclosing nothing is also a concern that the committee has had. The committee recommends the legislature consider a bill to direct the Division of Vehicles share with the Secretary of State the information it receives from any other state to identify any person who has a Kansas driver's license and has gotten a driver's license in another state. There was discussion about the different definitions of residency and how when you get a driver's license in another state, that doesn't necessarily mean that your county clerk can remove you from the voter roll, because you might choose to come back to Kansas. And so that is contributing to some of the voter bloat as it was being discussed. So the committee recommended a bill amending that and allowing for getting such a driver's license to be considered an intent to live in another state. And then the committee also recommends the legislature consider legislation to increase clarity on the definition of issue advocacy. Issue advocacy being a ballot issue, a yes-no question, as opposed to express advocacy, which is in regards to a candidate. Issue advocacy is absent in the Campaign Finance Act, and there are attorney general opinions on the matter. Statutes could benefit from more clarity. And then finally, it was not a recommendation of the committee, but they did have conversation about the same-day voter registration. No consensus was reached on it. There were discussions for it. There was discussion against it. But the committee agreed to include it not as a recommendation, but just as noted conversation of the report. The committee also requested KLRD keep the committee members informed of the progress of HR 4511, which was one of the pieces of legislation that addressed the concerns of unverified donations or contributors unknowingly making recurring contributions, and it is still sitting in its first committee. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'd be delighted to stand for questions.
Are there, first of all, thank you very much for that thorough rundown. Are there any questions for Ms. Kincaid? Okay, you're off the hook. Well, thank you very much. All right, committee, I'm all about trying to standard, not to time, and we have completed all the work for today. Unless there's anything for the good of the order, I would just wrap up by saying a couple things. First, I'll reiterate what Cheryl said, which is this is a paperless committee, so unless you need, you specifically ask for something printed out, it's on the drive. We're gonna be kind to the trees. Second, this is gonna be a very fast-moving committee. We will, I was successful all last year in not going past 5 o'clock, and I'm going to try to maintain that this year. But every day we will be meeting. So every day that we're supposed to meet, Tuesday and Thursday, we will meet because we only have 12 meetings to do all the work that we've got to do for this year. So I will try to work bills up front because I understand life intervenes. And so I'll try to work bills up front, and I will, as much as I can, try to work them on Tuesdays, but I can't guarantee that that will always be the case. If you're going to be absent, please let me know, because if we have to do a vote, I may have to replace you on the committee for that day. And so I appreciate the heads up if you're not going to make it. Finally, this is as I said, this is an accelerated committee, but it's also an accelerated session. The last day to request introductions of bills in this committee is practically the 29th, because the following week is when they have to be introduced on the floor, and on Monday. And so that Thursday before is the last day. So if Representative Brunk, if I didn't get to all your ideas and you've got things that you want to introduce, get with the revisor right away, because we got to get them written and we got to get them introduced, or they're not going to make the introduction deadline. With that, if there's nothing and no questions or anything for the good of the order, we're adjourned. Thank you.